All year long, NBC5 Response fights to recover your money.
My account, my savings account, had been drained of that $100,000.
Protect your safety.
And it just broke my heart to think that they're still out there after his accident, knowing they're uninsured.
And all along the way, our investigations help right wrongs.
I mean, you guys are miracle workers. I don't know what I would do without you guys.
Join us as NBC5 Response looks at our biggest cases of 2024. It's good to have you with us. I'm NBC5 Response investigator PJ Randhawa. Here at NBC5 and Telemundo Chicago, our consumer investigative team works tirelessly to resolve your consumer complaints. Here's a look at how we've helped you recover tens of thousands of dollars in 2024. Scamming Swifties, social media accounts hacked and used to sell fake Taylor Swift tickets. Susan was one of the victims.
To know that my account was being used to fraud other people was horrific.
After our initial story aired, her hacked account was closed, and a victim who fell for the scam got a $1,000 refund from her bank. Victor says someone used his debit card to create a rideshare app account and racked up more than $6,000 in charges. When the rideshare platform and his bank wouldn't help him, he turned to us.
And then I saw NBC Response, and I said, I'll give it a shot again.
We helped him get a full refund,
which was joyous and like a huge weight off my shoulders.
When a family's home burned to the ground, they found themselves on the hook for paying off an $80,000 solar panel system that was never operational. We helped get that loan forgiven.
How did that feel?
It felt good.
Event tickets disappearing from consumer accounts.
There was another email notification saying the transfer was completed.
NBC5 Response helped get more than $10,000 back for ticket holders who say they were brushed off by the big name company.
It's been a great help for sure.
A small nonprofit turned to NBC5 Response for help when a vendor wrongfully withheld thousands of dollars.
I'm convinced we would not have seen this money if it weren't for you guys.
Problem solved. When Charlie's federal benefits were incorrectly suspended and he couldn't get help, his sister knew who to call.
I don't think I could have gotten it done without your help.
After we got involved, the $18,000 Charlie was owed showed up in his bank account. A utility company's mistake left Kathleen's yard filled with raw sewage, and the company wouldn't fix the problem.
I did everything I was supposed to, but everything was like denied. They kept saying, we don't have this. We don't have that.
It sat there for months until NBC5 Response made a call.
If you get in that bind, NBC5 is the people you need to go to because this is a miracle. I mean, you guys are miracle workers. I don't know what I would do without you guys.
And then there's Valerie.
I mean, it's the wild, wild west out here as far as the internet is concerned.
She's our NBC5 Response viewer with the biggest monetary win this year. Scammers used a payment app to dupe her out of $100,000. And she didn't get her money back until we went to work for her.
It worked. It worked. You ruffled someone's feathers. What did you say? No, I don't need to know. You're a nice lady. I don't want you to say.
To date, NBC5 Response has recovered more than $5 million in money, goods, and services for our viewers. If you have a consumer problem you'd like our help with, fill out the NBC5 Response complaint form on NBCChicago.com/consumer or on our free NBC Chicago app. Now to our story that had the biggest impact in 2024. We've continued to receive reports about an uninsured school bus company transporting Chicago students across the area. In November, our investigation into Culver's transportation prompted the state to revoke the registrations of almost a dozen school buses. NBC5 Response has the latest from law enforcement and a former bus driver who says the company needs to face consequences. While driving down the Kennedy Expressway last month, Diane Ireland says these two old buses caught her attention.
When I saw the bus with the kids on it, I was like, that's just not right.
2 days prior, Diane and her husband saw our NBC5 Response investigation about how Culver school buses were operating without insurance. In response, the Illinois Secretary of State revoked the registrations for all 9 Culver school buses. Yet more than a month later, Culver's buses were still on the road.
We're like, we got to let PJ know that that job isn't done. And you need to follow up on that. The names were obscured or part of the letters were missing.
The Secretary of State tells us one Culver's bus Diane captured was using an expired plate. The agency has since confiscated all of Culver's license plates.
You can see that there's a huge dent in the side of the bus.
Is that duct tape?
Yeah, it actually was duct tape.
That's not normal. You don't duct tape that. That has to be replaced.
Now meet Jane, a former Culver school bus driver. That's not her real name, and we're obscuring her identity because she's afraid of retribution.
The clearance light is broken, missing out of there. That would not pass.
Jane says the Culver's buses she drove were rarely repaired and dangerous.
You had buses in there. The gauges didn't even work. You playing guess what for a speed limit. Yeah, no lights on the dash.
Jane says she started working for Culver's in 2023. She was paid under the table and was hired without any of the documentation the state requires for school bus drivers, like a school bus driver permit, drug screening, physical examination, and FBI criminal background check.
I was never sent for a physical. I was never sent for fingerprints. This is no protocol, especially if you're going to be transporting kids.
Jane also sheds light on a mystery NBC5 Responds has been trying to unravel for weeks. Per state law, all school buses are required to be inspected by the Department of Transportation every 6 months or 10,000 miles. We requested safety inspection reports for all Culver's buses going back 10 years, but we only received a total of 3 unscheduled inspection reports.
Were the buses being regularly inspected?
No. Because every last one of them had an expired safety lane sticker on them, and that was the sticker that was registered to that vehicle from the previous company that owned it.
Just this week, IDOT admitted it had no record of Culver's getting those state-required school bus safety inspections. But this statement contradicts a 2017 Chicago Public School Board report about the company that claims Culver's failed numerous state safety inspections. IDOT maintains they do not have any record of those failed inspections either. So how was Culver's able to operate for more than 10 years without a single semi-annual safety inspection on file? IDOT told us it's up to law enforcement to issue citations when non-compliant vehicles are in operation. But the agency also says it doesn't notify police when school buses skip their required inspections.
It was a risk for everybody on the bus, including the driver.
The Secretary of State's office tells us Culver's owner, Sherry Culver, has been cited with 3 misdemeanors for improper use of registration. Sherry Culver tells us her school buses are now off the road. If you see a Culver's bus on the road and can safely do so, take note of the time, location, and license plate and call your local non-emergency police line. Now to an investigation we brought you back in May. It can be hard to know who to trust these days. Sometimes you want a little reassurance that the person you're letting into your life or home is who you think they are. Many people turn to online background check companies for answers. But how accurate are they? We tried 3 of the most popular consumer background check sites to see what they found and, more importantly, what they missed. It's hard to be mysterious these days.
I know you're born in Canada and you did your graduate work or undergrad at DePaul, right?
So much about us can be found online for free. Just ask Professor Marshni Chetty at the University of Chicago. She specializes in online privacy and security.
I think you live in Elgin or South Elgin in Chicago. No? Okay.
Now, the data you find out about somebody in a quick Google search may not be totally accurate, but pay a small fee, and many consumer background check sites say they'll pull the records to show you who someone really is.
Can you understand why somebody would turn to one of these background check companies?
Well, I mean, obviously for safety reasons, if you're, trying to date someone.
They're absolutely not going to catch everything.
Matthew Jakubowski is a cybersecurity expert. He explains how these sites work.
It's probably about 5 different ways they collect data. Public records, web scraping, data brokers, surveys, and social media. They're scraping Twitter, other social media websites for this data to try to link it to you.
NBC5 Responds took a closer look at 3 consumer background check sites, Bin Verified, Spokio, and Truthfinder, to see how thorough and accurate they are when it comes to criminal records. Each site cautions the data they're providing may be outdated or incomplete, and that none of the reports should be used for employment, rental, or credit decisions. We searched the names of 7 Chicago men who were convicted of serious crimes like sexual abuse or home invasion in the past several years. Of the 21 reports we ran, 7 came back with incomplete records or no records at all. For example, 2 of the sites we used had no record of Christian Valsich, a registered sex offender convicted of sexually assaulting a woman he found on Tinder.
So I was shocked, the fact that 2 of I guess, the most highly recommended sites for online background checks hadn't found this person was kind of surprising to me.
And 2 of the sites also couldn't find any record of Leon Taylor, who has a rap sheet going back decades for crimes like battery and public indecency/sexual conduct.
So you kind of wonder, why wasn't it on the report?
Yeah, in 2020, police issued this alert for Forrest Peterson after they said he sexually assaulted a woman after posing as a delivery driver. He was later convicted of home invasion. But the most recent criminal record Spokeo could find for him was from 1998.
They're searching the records and giving you the report of what they found, but they're not actually going the extra mile to check. Whereas some of the other background check companies that, abide by the Fair Credit Reporting Act, they're going that extra mile. They're usually using something like a social security number, not just a first and last name.
Bottom line, both our experts and even some of the sites we tested say these reports should not be a substitute for your own due diligence.
Run your search on multiple sites and then just know that if there's no information there, it doesn't mean something bad hasn't happened. But the information may or may not be accurate.
In a statement, Been Verified told us someone may not be found in their search because of factors like data availability or consumer opt-outs. Spokeo says their database is constantly updating and they prioritize minimizing false positives. Truthfinder did not respond to our findings. To see exactly how each company fared in our experiment, visit nbcchicago.com/consumer. We dive into the world of seafood fraud. That's when you think you're buying one fish, but it's intentionally swapped out for something cheaper. We joined Chicago students as they put local samples to the test. NBC5 Responds is taking a closer look at seafood fraud. That's when you order one type of fish, but you get something else instead, usually a cheaper one. I teamed up with Dominican University as they tested various fish samples from Chicago markets and restaurants. If you pay for something, you expect to get what you ask for. But when it comes to seafood in Chicago, these Dominican University students are learning that's not always true.
I was really shocked at how much fish is mislabeled.
A 2019 study by ocean conservation group Oceana found about 1 in 5 fish samples across the country are mislabeled.
I thought, I can do this. I'd love to try this with my students.
This fall, Professor Irina Kalin-Jagman invited NBC5 Response to join her biology class as the students fact-check the labels on their seafood through DNA sequencing.
Here, you can do this one and I'll do this.
Okay.
That's what we'll do.
Cod.
You have cod. And I have
Or is it?
Or is it?
Or is it? Each student brought in 2 fish samples, most from a local grocery store or their favorite sushi restaurants around the Chicagoland area.
So one of the things with our study is that it has to be a raw fish, so we can't use cooked fish.
Mine was about $3 because I bought the whole fish because I'm going to eat it later.
Are you still going to eat it if it's not what you thought it was?
Yes, I will.
Okay. We have a lot of really cool samples. Look at this. We got red snapper and catfish and swordfish. Woohoo!
First, the students worked to isolate DNA from their fish samples.
Yeah, the smell is a little smelly.
I definitely don't think I'm going to be a fish fan after this.
No, I wasn't a fish fan before and I don't plan on being one after.
The goal is to isolate what's called a barcoding gene.
Okay, now go ahead and put it in the 55 degrees.
Which Irina says is the standard used to identify different species. Then the samples are sent off to a DNA sequencing lab for identification.
We can then put it in these nationally available, internationally available databases, and we can say, what does it match?
Fast forward 1 month, and the results are in.
So altogether, we were able to evaluate 84 samples, which is really exciting.
Overall, it was bad news for fish with white flesh, like red snapper.
Red snapper is always something else other than red snapper, especially when you get it from a restaurant.
I bought a sea bass and I bought a red snapper sample, and I thought they looked completely different. It turns out they were the exact same fish.
And all the student samples of white or super white tuna actually turned out to be escolar.
So escolar is not tuna. It's a completely different species of fish, and it actually has really, really high mercury levels. It can be dangerous for pregnant women, and it's banned from selling in a lot of Europe and in Japan.
But there was good news for the cod and ocean perch samples my lab partner Emma brought in.
I think some of us were kind of disappointed. We were like, we wanted to find something that wasn't what it was supposed to be, but overall that is a good thing.
Also, good news for salmon and regular tuna.
Salmon is almost always salmon. Tuna is very often tuna.
Although this testing was done on a much smaller scale than Oceana's study, year after year, Irina says the results show Chicago fish samples are mislabeled up to 30% of the time. She says she's adjusted her dining habits accordingly.
I would personally stick to tuna and salmon myself. If you're adventurous, obviously there are lots of other fish you can try at sushi restaurants. But it's both good news and bad news, right?
Here are a few key takeaways from the testing. If you want an expensive fish like red snapper, your chances of getting the real deal are much better if you buy it at a grocery store. And get the full fish if you really want to avoid being duped. Finally, be thoughtful about where you buy your fish. Several grocery stores proudly advertise their seafood sourcing programs and allow you to track fish from the sea to the store. We'll be right back. Aside from getting your money back in 2024, NBC5 Responds warned you about business practices that you may find deceptive. One story that got a lot of attention starts with a knock at your front door. If you look hard enough, you can find problems just about anywhere. But one day a few weeks ago, a problem came right to Jim Veneria's door.
It's just been assigned to do a real brief evaluation through the community, as it's been flagged for high carbon emission and high carbon footprint.
It seems strange straight out of the gate.
Jim's doorbell camera captured this man, an employee of an electric company called Empower. He claimed he was working in partnership with Nicor, ComEd, and People's Gas.
I'm just here because of the carbon emission, and they're trying to avoid it from becoming fatal and with fatality in our youth and in our elders. That wouldn't be too well.
It seemed like a scare tactic, you know? So it made me dubious all around.
We reached out to all the utility companies mentioned, and each said they had no partnership with Empower. A few minutes into the visit, the salesman asked to see Jim's ComEd bill.
I just need to see how many kilowatts and how many therms you're using, and that comes on your latest bill. But with a lot of people going online, they're failing to see it.
I see. I'll tell you what, I'll double check it. Thank you for the heads up. You don't need to swing around again. But I won't be showing anyone my bill, I'm afraid.
We've heard it all.
Sarah Moskowitz is the executive director at the Citizens Utility Board. She explains Empower is one of roughly 70 alternative electric suppliers licensed to do business in Illinois, and their goal is to get you to switch from ComEd to their own service.
Some of these marketers just lie. They say it's going to be cheaper.
NBC5 Responds found more than 100 complaints against the company filed with the Better Business Bureau, most mentioning pushy sales tactics and high bills. In response to the online complaints, the company has said they require all potential customers to complete a third-party verification phone call before their enrollment is confirmed to ensure they're not signing up due to confusion or deception.
A lot of times folks don't realize that it might not be a wet signature on a piece of paper. It might be an agreement over a phone call. So they'll be like, okay, well, we'll just finalize this.
But according to Cub, over the last 10 years, ComEd customers lost $1.4 billion by switching to alternative electricity suppliers.
Much more often, we'll see them charging more than ComEd. Or a lot of times these companies will save you money for a couple of months, and then after that, they jack it up.
Their practices are definitely very deceptive.
And that brings us back to Jim. He told the salesperson not to come back, and he advises others who find themselves in a similar situation to do the same thing.
I have a lot of neighbors who English is their second language. They may fall victim to this type of scam, and I just want to prevent that from happening.
We reached out to Empower Energy but didn't hear back. To find out if your electric supplier has changed with or without your consent, check your ComEd bill. Coming up, NBC5 Response digs into the backgrounds of Chicago area companies accused of bad business practices. We'll be right back. When you're looking to hire a company, reading reviews is important, but those can only tell you so much. NBC5 Response digs deeper into companies' backgrounds, and in these cases, what we uncovered was alarming. In January, we told you about Frank and Monica. They hired an Illinois gutter company to install new gutter guards and winterize their home.
Well, these came in the...
A lot of advertisement, and like I said, my friend...
Our friends used them.
It was like all good reviews.
When Frank paid the company but couldn't get them to do the work, he called us. Our investigation found the company wasn't only leaving customers in the lurch, it was also failing to pay its employees and let their health insurance benefits lapse.
Well, I want what I'm owed for the work that I did. And then we can walk away and leave it at that.
The Illinois Department of Labor is investigating the claims of unpaid wages. The company is facing multiple lawsuits and has been ordered by the courts to pay nearly $2.2 million to banks, businesses, and vendors. In June, we first told you about a real estate coaching company accused of leaving people in financial ruin.
So instead of you getting the money to pay the contractors and renovate the home, what was happening with it?
We have no idea where the money is.
How much are we talking about here?
I have lost $169,000. I'm sorry.
Investors say at the advice of the coaching company, they signed up for high-interest commercial loans to buy and flip houses. Then they were unexpectedly hit with thousands of dollars in default interest fees, despite making monthly payments.
It's disgusting that this is 2 years later and we have no answer. We have more questions than answers.
NBC5 Responds uncovered 2 lawsuits accusing the coaching company of running a real estate Ponzi scheme. Our reporting led to a multi-million-dollar lawsuit being filed on behalf of 18 alleged victims. And in July, we showed you these covered-up trenches 2 contractors left behind at Christine's home.
They said, "We noticed that you have cracks in your foundation. We won't charge you a lot, $800 just to check it."
She says the contractors approached her and they said they found damage that would cost $19,000 to repair. They persuaded Christine to write a check, cashed it, and never finished the work. The Cook County Sheriff is working on the case. He tracked down one of the men.
He's taken into custody, brought in front of a judge, and unfortunately, the judge did not take his passport away from him. And he has dual citizenship in Ireland. And hours after, at most after the arraignment on the case, he took off back to Ireland.
Our law enforcement sources say these men are part of a gang of international home repair scammers known as the Irish Travelers. Arlington Heights recently posted this warning about the gang on its social media pages. Now that you've seen how NBC5 Responds served our community in 2024, let us help you. Fill out our consumer complaint form. It's on nbcchicago.com/consumer and on our free NBC Chicago app. I'm PJ Randhawa. Take care.